for serving our country.
My name is Mark Weatherwax. I am a Gulf War veteran. I grew up south of Arapahoe on the family farm. I graduated in 1983 from Arapahoe. I then went to the University of Nebraska School of Technical Agriculture in Curtis, Nebraska, and graduated from there in 1985. Then I moved to Lincoln, where I worked for another year or so, and joined the Army in 1987. I took my basic at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. From Fort Jackson, I went to my AIT, where you learn to do your job, at Fort Lee, Virginia. From Fort Lee, Virginia, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and went to jump school to learn how to parachute out of planes. From there, I was assigned to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I was assigned to the 429th Medical Company ground ambulance. So we had 36 Humvee ambulances that we used to evacuate people. In 1990, when Kuwait was invaded by Iraq, we were alerted, and my unit was locked down to be deployed, and they first said that we were going to go on a plane, so we packed to go on a plane, and then we back to go onto a ship because we were going to go on a ship, and in typical Army fashion, they did that back and forth most of the day, and then at 2 a.m. in the morning, they told us you're going to go on a ship, and that we were driving our equipment down to Wilmington, North Carolina in the morning at 7. So then at 7 in the morning, we all lined up and drove our equipment down to Wilmington and dropped it off to be put on the ships. Equipment took approximately 3 weeks to go by sea to get to Saudi Arabia. So we had one platoon that went over early to meet our equipment, and the rest of us followed at later dates. When we went to leave, we left on a 747 Pan Am jet. It took us approximately 19 hours to get to Dammam, Saudi Arabia, and then once we landed there, it was approximately 95 degrees, so it was a little warmer from the 40 when we left North Carolina, and they moved us to a base just outside of Dammam, which we stayed there approximately 3 weeks, and then moved down into Dammam for a little while, and from there they kind of skipped us around and moved us kind of north towards the border, and then they moved us kind of to the left or west, and we ended up being part of the Hammer when they invaded back into Iraq during the Gulf War and stuff. My unit was turned into a medical evacuation battalion, so they had our 36 ambulances. We got 14 litter buses, and then we had 49 Huey medevacs assigned to us. We had 5 hospitals that were within 6 miles of us, so they were the ones we were supporting. When the air campaign kicked off, we noticed that, but it really didn't affect us a lot where we were at, just did our normal daily routines. But then when the Gulf War, the ground part started, we were pretty well locked down and busy doing our tasks that were assigned. We were packing up to move and jump forward so that we were going to be closer to the action and be able to transport people. And we were about halfway packed, and they told us to stop, that the war was over, and that we would be going back south soon. So approximately 2.5, 3 weeks later, they moved us back south. We ended up going back to the original camp we started out in. From there, they took us, and we had to clean all of our equipment and get it ready to go back on ships and stuff. And about another month later, we finally got to leave the country and stuff. And while we were waiting to get on our plane and stuff. It took a little longer. They had to do some maintenance on it and stuff. And when we finally got out there at 1 a.m., it was the exact same plane that we had flown over on. We flew back on and stuff. That took us approximately 21 hours to fly back to North Carolina and stuff. After I was back in North Carolina, I re-upped for another 4 years and stuff, where I was assigned to Fort Sill, Oklahoma. When I got there, we were testing the M109 Paladin howitzer, and after doing that for about a year, we went ahead and the Army approved it, so then we went ahead and fielded and wrote doctrine on it. So we were the first unit to get the guns and to go out and actually use them and write how they were going to be used during wartime and stuff. So then after 8 years in, I decided to get out of the service, and I moved to Lincoln, Nebraska and stuff, and was there for several years. And then in 2010, my wife and I and our family decided to move back out to Arapahoe, and I now work at the village of Holbrook, and then my wife and oldest daughter work at the Arapahoe Public Schools. Thank you.
My Uncle John was a Marine. He was stationed in Japan. He was discharged late 80s, early 90s. My cousin Justin, he was in the Air Force. He flies combat missions. He is currently still serving. He flew missions in the Operation Iraq Freedom.
Thank you, veterans, for fighting for our country.
How's it going, Warrior Nation? My name is Airman First Class Derek Money, and I was a part of the class of 2017. But now, I am proudly serving in the United States Air Force, here in Spangdahlem, Germany. When asked the question of, why do you serve? I thought back to the many reasons of why I chose to enlist. For many service members, they choose to enlist for the educational benefits, or to provide a stable lifestyle for their families, or they're compelled with a sense of overwhelming patriotism that propels them to defend our country. But even though I've only been serving for a short time, I feel as though the biggest reason of why I and many other service members continue to serve is the fact that we do make a difference, not only in the lives of our families and those we swore to protect, but also many lives around the world. Recently, I had the opportunity to be a part of 2 historic humanitarian missions where I got to see firsthand how the armed forces supports and helps those in need. Our ability to impact the world for good is why I choose to serve. And to all our veterans who came before us, thank you. You paved the way in blood, sweat, and tears for us to be the dominant force that we are today. Through your leadership and hard work, we will carry on the lessons learned to help those in need, both at home and abroad. Once again, to all of our veterans, thank you. And I hope you have an amazing Veterans Day.
I would like to thank my great-grandpa Dallas Einsmeyer for fighting in the Korean War. When he was 18 years old, he served in the Army and drove in a truck that carried ammo and got ambushed and injured in the war.
Thank you, Fritz, for serving in the war.
Thank you for saving our country. It is interesting that you drove M68 tanks and was a fast lieutenant.
Thank you, Grandpa, for joining and surviving the military.
Hello, my name is Cadet Isaac Goshert, and I'm a current member of the Nebraska Army National Guard. I was part of the 2021 graduating class from Arapahoe High School and joined the National Guard in January my senior year. About March, when I decided I was going to attend UNK as a college, I contracted with the ROTC program there and am now a cadet with the Big Red Battalion, in which I will graduate college as a second lieutenant, where I plan on branching into aviation and becoming an aviator afterwards. I joined the National Guard for a couple of reasons. One is the thrill. I really get a kick out of all the action that we get. It's a bit of an adventure and just kind of fulfills that adventurous side, the curiosity inside of me. And then second reason is for the actual service part of it. I've always enjoyed serving other people, and being able to serve my state and my nation for as much as the time as I can is just very pleasurable to me, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I want to thank other veterans, the people who've actually seen combat, for what they've done. I've only been to basic training, and it was a little tough for me. It's definitely not where it used to be, and I know that a lot of people have seen some pretty scary stuff, and my hat's off to them. They really deserve a lot more than what they get, and thanks to the rest of the people that we serve. Without their support, it's just kind of a hard job, to go out there and know that the people you're supporting or fighting for, their freedom, if they value that and show that they value that, supporting you, it makes the job a whole lot better. It's hard to try to give up your life for someone doesn't enjoy what you do. So thanks to everyone. Hope you all have a great Veterans Day, and a special thanks to all those people who gave up their lives for our nation. And I'm hoping one day, maybe not necessarily give up my life, but I'd be ready to for the people out there. So thanks again, and grace and peace to y'all.
Thank you, veterans, for our states and protecting our flag and the states of North America.
Veterans for fighting so we can have freedom and we can be happy.
My great-grandpa Clarence was a veteran, and so was my grandpa Lanny Helms. Thank you for your service.
My name is Jordan Smith. I was a part of the Arapahoe graduating class of 2021. I serve as a United States Marine. I chose to serve my country because I wanted to achieve something only a few people can, and that's earning the title as a Marine. I also chose to serve so when war or conflict comes knocking on the door, I'll be there ready to help defend our great country. The Marine Corps has taught me mostly about honor, courage, and commitment, but most importantly, it's taught me discipline, responsibility, how to be more confident, and just how to be a good dude, which is what Staff Sergeant McCornell would always preach. Right now, I'm in a 16-week program called IMC, which is Infantry Marine Course, where we learn about all the different weapon systems and functions. The majority of the course we sleep out in the field and conduct combat scenarios. It's a real fun experience, and I can't wait to earn my title of an infantryman. To our men and women in uniform, past, present, and future, God bless you, and thank you for serving the country with courage and dedication. Happy Veterans Day to you.
Thank you for serving in the Army and fighting in the P-40 in World War II.
Thanks for serving in the Army and for being the best dad, and thanks to all serving men for saving our country.
Thank you, all veterans, for risking your lives for us. We all thank you for helping us and helping our country.
My name is Dalton Shimon. I am a part of the alum class of 2017, currently stationed in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, a part of the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. I am a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout. I am also an E5 Sergeant. Part of my job is I go behind enemy lines with my dismount team, and we find the enemy, how many there is of them, what equipment they have, any vehicles, and we report that information back to the commander so he sees the overall picture of the battlefield, and he can emplace whatever or whomever he needs to defeat said enemy. I serve because I have various family members in my family who were in the armed forces, and I would like to thank the wrestling coaches from my high school career, and that would consist of Coach Paulson and Coach Johnny Kohler, aka Grandpa. Happy Veterans Day.
My Papa Corbin served in the U.S. Army for 4 years.
he worked in communications on the front line. He was stationed in Germany, France, and England during World War II.
Thank you, veterans, for keeping us safe.
Hello, my name is Marcia Foley. Most of you know me as Mrs. Foley, Senora Foley, or even Coach Foley. However, I am also a military mother, and I wanted to speak to you today from that perspective. I am the mother of 3 children, Patrick, Aaron, and Bethany. My eldest and youngest both chose to serve in our military. My other child, Aaron, is fighting her own battles as a missionary in Cambodia in a much different way than her siblings. My family has a military history. My father served in World War II and also in Korea, along with being part of the Ohio Air Guard. He could have not served in the military because he was an engineer who worked for a company that produced airplanes. So he would have been exempted from serving. But instead, after Pearl Harbor, he enlisted, even though he could have stayed home with his wife of 6 months and enjoyed being with my mom. But he did choose to serve. Thankfully, he came through without being injured. My mom's 2 brothers also served. Unfortunately, my Uncle Richard was killed on a bombing mission over Germany. And I remember my mother saying that at his funeral, someone came to her mother and said, "Oh, it's so sad that Richard was killed, but just think you have 6 other children." And my grandmother replied, "I don't have spare children." And this always stayed in my mind. I always thought about how tragic that would be to lose a child to war. Thankfully, her other son came home and life continued. My brother also served in the military. He served from 1964 to 1967 in the United States Army. I had several cousins who were also in the military in the 1960s, and some of them served in Vietnam. So when our son came to us and said that he wanted to enlist, we were, of course, happy that he had made this decision, but also concerned. Now, at this time, the United States had been in a time of relative peace for many, many years. And with the exception of Operation Desert Storm and Desert Sabre, we had not been in any large military battles up until that point. But as a military mother, and my son also realized that when you enlist, there's no guarantee that the peace will continue. Well, my son graduated from high school and he left for boot camp in July, and he was at Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. On a beautiful September day, as I was driving between schools, I received the news of the attack of September 11th. You see, my son graduated in 2001. And so while he was at Fort Leonard Wood training to be a combat engineer, the United States had been attacked. And so at this point, we knew that the peace that I'd hoped for in my mother's heart was probably not going to happen while Patrick was in the military. Well, after his graduation from boot camp, he was sent to Germany to do training. Obviously, they train all the time. And while in Germany, he was sent to Kosovo for about 6 months on a UN peacekeeping mission, as that was still a pretty hot spot in the world at that time. He returned to Germany to receive even more training. Now, we knew that there was fighting going on in Afghanistan with our troops, and that invasion into Iraq was likely to happen soon. Well, Patrick came home on leave, and it was around Christmas time. And his sister Erin was home from college, and his younger sister was there because she was a senior in high school. And we had such a nice time. All 3 kids were together. And one evening, the girls decided we needed to rent a video. So we rented a video. Imagine that, going to rent one. And they went into town, and they came back with Lilo and Stitch. Now, my son, being the big military man, was sort of upset. They didn't want to watch a kids' movie. But as they're watching it, and we could hear them laughing, and Patrick was laughing with this big belly laugh that he had when he was just a baby. It was such a joyful sound. And, you know, as a mom, this is what your kids still look like to you, even if they're quite old. So we so enjoyed the time that the three kids had together. But unfortunately, the time came when we had to take Patrick to the airport. So only my husband and I drove him to Omaha, and we stayed with him as long as we could. But of course, at one point, he had to walk away from us and go towards the security. And as he walked away, went through security and was out of sight, I all of a sudden felt like I was just absolutely going to collapse, because I realized that that might be the last time that I saw him walk away from me. And my husband comforted me, and we left the airport. But it was very difficult. So it turns out that, yes, he was sent to Iraq, and they were sent to Kuwait first, where they were getting ready to stage the invasion. But on March 20th, when the ground troops started to move in, Patrick was with the ground troops. And they didn't have communication set up very well at that time. So we heard nothing from him. There was no phone calls, nothing. But we just kept thinking, well, no news is good news. And some of the teachers at my school mentioned to me how well I was handling this. And for the most part, I was. But they didn't see me when I dropped an egg one night in the kitchen while fixing dinner, and I burst into tears because I dropped an egg. Or when the school secretary sent over the announcement that I needed to come to the office immediately. And of course, the worst thought came to my mind when they said that. So I hurried to the office to find out it was something very trivial. And I wanted to shout at her, "Don't you know I have a son in combat and you scared me like that?" But of course, she probably didn't even know my son was in Iraq. And also, I realized she really didn't sound any differently than she normally did on the intercom. But your life, you continue to go day by day. And I know, though, my biggest fear, my biggest dread was to see an official vehicle drive up and pull into our our driveway. And an even bigger fear than that is that my daughter Bethany would be at our home by herself if something like that would happen, and we wouldn't be there to be with her. Well, thankfully, that never happened. And on Mother's Day, I got my first communications with my son. That's the second best phone call I've ever had. And he said, "Hey, Mom, I'm fine. We're in Baghdad. Happy Mother's Day." And then later, several months later, I got the best phone call ever, which was, "Hi, Mom, I'm fine. I'm in Germany." And I was just so thankful that he was there and he was in one piece. He came home shortly after that to go on leave. And then he went to his next assignment, which was at Fort Hood in Texas. And there, of course, in order to help the soldiers sort of wind down, they were just mowing lawns and doing maintenance and things like that, which he found completely boring, but I understand why they would have them doing that. And at the end of his 4 years, he decided not to re-enlist, where we thought this could possibly be a lifelong career for him. He decided that 4 years in the Army was enough, and he settled into an area near Fort Hood in Texas because he liked it there. And I know that there are things that happened while he was there that he has not shared with me. You don't share some things with your mother. I know he shared some with my husband, who's obviously his father also, while they were taking walks out in the dark. But I do know that war changes a person. But I'm very thankful that my son came out in good health. But I feel for all the moms who didn't have this happen for them. When he also did not re-enlist, we did want to tease him at that point because his younger sister was at that point in Air Force ROTC at Baylor University. And we told him that the real reason he didn't re-enlist is because he didn't want to have to salute his little sister. Well, Bethany did finish her ROTC training and her degree, and Patrick was with her the day that she commissioned as a first lieutenant in the Air Force. She's still serving in the Air Force to this day, and I have to brag a little bit. And in August, she will be promoted to lieutenant colonel. Now, we do have concerns for her. She has been deployed, so we still have that fear that every parent has, no matter where their children are or what they're doing, that we could get bad news. But we were very proud of our 2 military children and also our daughter, who's, like I said, fighting her own spiritual battles with the people in Cambodia. Thank you.
Thank you, veterans, for serving our country and keeping us safe.
Thank you, veterans, for protecting us and saving us.
Thank you, veterans, for serving in the Army. Thank you, George Kern, for serving in the Bosnian Army.
My Uncle Dalton is a aircraft mechanic in the Marine Corps. I want to thank him and the other members
For serving our country.
for serving our country.
My name is Lance Corporal Lindsey Franssen. I graduated class of 2019 at Arapahoe Public Schools. I'm active duty Marine Corps, still currently serving at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Quantico, Virginia. I just want to start out by giving the biggest thanks to all active duty and reserve members and veterans that are out there. Everything that you've done hasn't gone unnoticed, and you've made the biggest impact on the way life is today. I've always had so many people ask me, why did you join? And the answer I always give them is because of the family, the band of brothers and sisters that you make in the military. It's just such an amazing thing, because there could be a chance that you will be risking your life for their lives and vice versa. I also joined for the freedom of Americans just like me that I've gotten because of veterans before me and service members. Just the chance to be able to have a voice and to pick your own religion that you want to believe in, and just have public education, just all of those things because of the military, just fighting for the freedoms that all Americans have is just amazing. And I also joined because the military has a lot of benefits that a lot of high school kids can't get, because either they don't get scholarships or they aren't living in a good household. You get a lot of benefits: free dental insurance, health insurance. You get the GI Bill and tuition assistance, which pay for college. And that's an amazing thing that the military and the government offers to you, for just giving such a sacrifice to be able to serve. Once again, I just wanted to say thank you to all active duty, reserve members, and veterans. Thank you so much. Have a good day.